Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad you guys made it. Even we are having this snowy day, and it's very special for me to give this talk today because I'm always trying to find out ways to help us on our spiritual path and having lay lives. It's difficult sometimes to maintain the level of practice that we do realize during retreat, for example. To maintain that clarity of mind is difficult, especially when we go out into the world and we get fed constantly with these 4 poisons. And coming to retreat is almost going into a 12-step program where we abstain from those poisons. That is practice, and that's the practice that we do in retreat. But then we are just like addicts that had this abstinence program, and we are not ready to be out into the world and be fed constantly with these poisons. It's very difficult to abstain from engaging into these poisons. Maybe we abstain for the week. After retreat we do fine, but little by little we engage again into these poisons, and our mind, our original mind, gets clouded again. So I'm talking about my own mind too. So I wanna be able to maintain this Buddha mind because I love this Buddha mind. So this research, and I had simplified this practice to help both of us, you and I together, no separation. And I know this practice works because I've been doing it for a while, and I find that it's great practice for our lay lives. So I have chosen koan number 6 of the Mumonkan to introduce this practice. And don't worry about if you hear things that you never heard and you're going to forget. Don't worry, I'm going to go back. At the very end, we'll summarize everything and you'll have very clear understanding. So I like how Thich Nhat Hanh says, listen to this talk the same way that the earth absorbs the rain without any effort. It just happens. It's just there to receive it. There is no effort. So the same way, don't worry about things you don't understand. I'm going to forget. No, you won't. I promise you. So the koan number 6 of the Mumonkan says, the Buddha holds up a flower. Once in ancient times, when the world honored one was at Mount Rakuta, he held up a flower, twirled it, and showed to the assembly. At this, they all remained silent. Only the venerable Kashyapa broke into a smile. The world honored one said, I have the treasury eye of the true Dharma, the marvelous mind of Nirvana, the true form of no form, the subtle Dharma gate that does not rest on words or letters, but is a special transmission outside the scriptures. This I entrust to Mahakashyapa. And as you know, this is one fundamental characteristic of our Zen school, and this is this transmission outside the scripture, where 2 minds become absolutely one, and nothing is given or taken. This kind of transmission is what happened among Rakuta, and this is the kind of transmission that happened in Zen, when there is a transmission from a teacher to a Dharma successor. About 3 months after the death of the Buddha, around the 480 before Christ, Mahakashyapa gathered all of the disciples of the Buddha. This first gathering was to be called the First Buddhist Council. In this council, Mahakashyapa acknowledged Upali, one of the Buddha's senior monks, to have the most complete knowledge of the Buddha's rules of monastic conduct. These rules, as Upali remember them, together with the circumstances that caused the Buddha to create them, were adopted by the council and later formed what was to be called the basket of discipline. So even the council, the idea of council is so remote. That's how the teachings came to be gathered, through council. So council, we still do council these days. Then Mahakashapa gathered all the disciples again, but this time he called on Ananda to recite all the Buddha's sermons from memory. These sermons, as Ananda remembered them, were adopted by the Second Council and later formed the basket of sutras. The first basket was the basket of discipline. This basket in the Second Council is the basket of sutras. And these baskets contain thousands of sutras. And Ananda always started his recitations with, "Thus I have heard." And so all Buddhist sutras begin with those words. According to the legend, a third Buddhist council was convened later on. This time was to preserve the Buddha's special teachings. According to the legend, the Buddha only gave these teachings to gods and devas. The only human that was present during these teachings was his disciple Shariputra, who passed these teachings to other monks. This third basket, called Basket of Special Teachings, also explores the psychological and spiritual phenomena contained in the sutras. These three baskets of teachings were preserved by chanting and memory by generations of monks, and we still recite some of them ourselves in our services. And they were written for first time in the 1st century before Christ with the name Tripitaka, which means three baskets, or Pali Canon, because the first language, the language was used was Pali. In this particular koan, the Buddha is about to give a sermon on Mount Grakuta to 500 monks. However, the Buddha doesn't talk. He shows up a flower and twirls it around. And as you know, a flower is composed of the 5 elements. What is a flower? The plant of the flower is rooted on soil, which is the earth element, receives the warmth of the sun, which is the fire element, needs rain to grow, which is the water element, earth element to breathe, and space to grow. It is recorded in the Pali Canon that the Buddha taught about the elements as practice. However, in the Pali Canon, the Buddha talked about 6 elements, not 5, 6. The 6th element is what he called undefiled consciousness. And he calls it an element, the undefiled consciousness element. So this flower in this koan that is composed of all the elements is also nothing other than a manifestation of Buddha's undefiled consciousness, and so a manifestation of everything else. The 6th element practice is considered one of the most significant insight practices of the Pali Canon, and the Buddha recommended it as a technique for developing equanimity, wisdom, and awareness.